Welcome to the You Are It podcast. My name is Alejandra Orozco. I am a social science researcher and an energy healer. You Are It has been created to support you in expanding your perception of reality. You are loved and absolutely deserving simply because you are, not because of what you have accomplished. Join me and be ready to transform your beliefs and approaches as you enter the flow of becoming one with your highest good and your highest purpose. Hello, dear souls. In this 5th episode, we explore how we can confront oppressive people and situations with our power and light, offering a different approach than just condemnation and exclusion of those who oppress. You are all very welcome. Hildegard of Bingen, a German abbot or superior monk from the 10th century, who was also a writer, philosopher, a mystic, wrote, "Caritas abundat in omnia," a text which translates loving tenderness abounds for all, from the darkest to the most eminent one beyond the stars. Exquisitely loving all, she bequeaths the kiss of peace upon the highest king. Indeed, love aboundeth in all things. In today's episode, we explored how this essential truth applies regardless of human behavioral or emotional choices. We speak of love. So how does this translate to our perception of and response to someone who directly or indirectly oversteps or acts without regard for our divinity or the well-being of others? How to see beauty in things and beings who seem to go against life? Should we show kindness to those who are unkind? How are we to respond to the actions of the oppressor or the deceiver? These are key questions that need to be addressed in the context of our consistent message that love abounds in all things and that all is divine in nature. We have mentioned before that all of creation is divine in origin, and that the dual reality in which we are immersed within this plane exists to further our awareness, understanding, and expansion through the experience of contrast, the perception of opposites, light and shadow. Truly, there is no existence of one without the other. In order to understand light, we need its opposite, darkness. One does not make sense or even exist without the other. One enables the other to be realized, understood, and appreciated. When you realize that even those who are driven by their shadows are also divinely created, you are offered a very pragmatic knowledge that you can use for your benefit and the benefit of all creation, or you can choose to ignore it and perhaps perpetuate conditions where the shadows seem to dominate the light. Let us elaborate on this. Within Stoicism, the ancient Greek school of philosophy, there is the teaching that virtue, the highest good, is based on knowledge, and therefore ignorance is the source of all evil. There are also two quotes in the writings of the Baha'i religion that say, ignorance is the source of all error, and that man is noble by nature. David Hawkins, in his book I, Reality and Subjectivity, says evil is not the opposite of God, but simply the denier of God. And we can apply this to the condition of darkness. It is not the opposite of light. It is simply what is in place when light is absent. Ignorance is what is in place until knowledge is acquired. Our response to the actions of the one we find oppressive is not to be permissive or to ignore them. At all times we are making choices, and not to honor ourselves and others or to disrespect ourselves and others. We are always choosing either to be light, the light that we truly are, or to play with being darkness out of ignorance. The thing is, when we are in our power and light, it is natural for us to be aware that all beings are divine in nature. And this awareness allows us to make choices other than those that ultimately resemble those of the oppressor, such as engaging in conflict, using the same means, responding in kind to unkindness, and the like. You see, we can and must have clear boundaries and be able to say no. At all times, we are either consenting or not consenting to experiences, feelings, beliefs, positions, etc. Saying an unwavering no and having clear boundaries is our way of protecting what we hold sacred, such as how a child should be treated, how we treat others, how others should treat us, what we consider honorable and kind, etc. We all abide by principles. The principles might be based on essential truths or might be representative of a lower level of reasoning. Some principles within families, religious traditions, or ethnic culture, to give an example, may be so far removed from universal principles that you can see how people use them to favor one gender over the other, or to favor a family or a nation over another, and so on. So, principles become these non-negotiable things that we use as the basis of our interactions with the world. As simple as that. What you are being invited to consider and embrace in this podcast in general and in this episode in particular is one of those essential principles, which we believe is more in line with universal truth. The principle is that all beings are divine in nature. So, how does this apply to the way we address the actions of the oppressor? You can say no to the oppressor and still offer him or her the dignified treatment they may be denying you. What is this dignified or enlightened treatment? It is to be aware and to act with him or her in such a way that you recognize that he or she is a divinely created being, even at the moment where he or she chooses to act in ignorance or in opposition to the very source that gives him or her life. For you are aware that you are light, and you are light everywhere and at all times, especially when the shadows are thicker, even towards those whose ignorance prevents them from being light. Otherwise, we might emulate, without believing that we are doing so, the very actions of those we find oppressive. Because, you see, it seems to me that nothing is more oppressive than to deprive those who do not know, who know the beauty of their origins and that it is love, of being perceived as divine in spite of their ignorance. If we deny them that, tell me, aren't we just as oppressive as they are? How are we different? What higher frequency are we offering to make things better? We are oppressive when we see others as less deserving than ourselves. We may do this for many reasons, such as projecting our own inner sense of unworthiness onto others, etc., etc. We may elaborate on this on a different episode. But back to the point, when we are oppressive, we do what we do out of a sense of seeing others as less than ourselves, or as deserving of our unkind treatment. You are oppressive to those whom you don't see as your equals, those whom you feel can be walked over, or those whom you feel need to be oppressed in order for you to thrive. And obviously, this perception of others denies the divinity that is in all human beings. So, if your perception of others denies their true nature, is that not the same as what they do to those they oppress? Please think about this for a moment. I do not mean to diminish the magnitude and impact of oppressive actions. Oh, they cause great sadness and they deeply affect the world we live in. David Hawkins explains, open quotation marks, it is a mistake to think that a thought system based on lies is weak. Nothing made by a child of God is without power. Close quotation marks. There are things that we create out of ignorance, out of a state of separation, and separation is what those creations bring about. And when we create from a higher level of perception, from a place of deep awareness of the divinity of existence, beauty and oneness is what those creations manifest. So the impact that we have as divinely created beings is quite incomparable. And the higher the state of consciousness, the greater the transformative power of our thoughts and actions. And so I am here to remind you that we all come from prime source, and that the more you recognize that love is omnipresent in all things and all beings, the more you contribute to the disappearance of ignorance from the face of the earth. Could I give a more concrete example? Yes, and a very special one. In Power versus Force, David Hawkins offers beautiful insights into Gandhi's life. We all know that Gandhi brought the British Empire to its knees without a drop of violence. Before I share about Gandhi, let us remember about the way we pursue and fight for our dignity and rights in many places on this planet. We do it by denying the divinity of the other. Otherwise, we wouldn't bomb places. We wouldn't think for a second about paying miserably for the work of farmers in developing countries to have cheap, fresh produce in developed countries. We wouldn't think of others as being beneath us. But these kind of actions are what we see everywhere. We see the other as less because of gender, because of nationality, or cultural or religious upbringing, and even because of a species. Again, you would never mistreat anything or anyone that you see as equal or higher than yourself. Nor can anybody who is aware of his own divinity move towards hurting someone else. In the case of Gandhi, his power originated in his perception of himself and others, and in the principle that guided that perception. For him, there was an inherent dignity in every human being, and an inherent right to freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination. For Gandhi, all human beings had these rights by virtue of their divine creation. As simple as that. He never denied the divinity of any human being, even those who oppressed him. He recognized and insisted that everyone, including the British Empire, respect the rights of all human beings, including the members of his nation. There is this beautiful story that I barely remember. It had to do with Gandhi's approach to opposing the oppressive actions of the British Empire. As you know, Gandhi was engaged in peaceful protests to let the British know that what they were doing to his people is not what a human being deserves, what all human beings are worthy of. Well, during one of these peaceful protests, Gandhi learned that there was a group that was planning to use violence against the British settlers. When he learned this, he told them that this would not happen in any protest organized by him, and that if they insisted, he would simply call off the protest. His message was very clear. He would not support using violence, even against a violent and oppressive regime. Gandhi was unwavering in his belief that all human life deserves freedom and self-determination, that no violence should be used against another human being. Otherwise, what is there to defend and uphold if we use the same means and act in the same way as those who deny the divinity inherent in all beings? There is truly no doubt in my mind that, as Hildegard of Bingen said, love aboundeth in all things. Perhaps it is entirely a matter of awareness and perception. And yet, it abounds even in those who ignore that they are made of the very essence of love. It amuses me to wonder at the extent of the unconditionality of existence and the perfection of this creation. See how we are allowed to deny even the source of our existence and still have air to breathe, and love to receive at every moment. But the thing is, when we are ignorant of our divinity or refuse to accept the very substance of which we are made, we simply deprive ourselves so badly that it becomes natural to act without kindness and humanity. Whenever you see oppression, just remember that there is a soul that is unaware of its power and how to be peace and love. Allow yourself to be so aware, so expansive in your perception of the nobility of everyone in creation that you don't even for a second consider disrespecting or belittling anyone who is acting in a way that shows ignorance of self, or towards anyone who may be so disempowered that they take pleasure in putting others down. You are already in a place of power, and your awareness will guide you to not let fear drive your actions, and to set clear boundaries in such a way that those in a state of ignorance can clearly see that you are not one they can oppress, and that even towards them you uphold the principle that we all come from the same divine source. I love you all so dearly. Remember that your input is so crucial. As you perceive it, you conceive it, and you give it life. Mind, if you are listening to this podcast, I know you are realizing the powers you have been endowed with. Again, I love you very much. The one speaking to you is Alejandra, and you have been listening to You Are It. The definition and scope of oppression goes beyond the mistreatment of one person by another. Oppression can also manifest in how we view others and ourselves. Let your perception of yourself and others be so kind and all-encompassing that others may find their own light as they look into your eyes and enter your presence. It is a joy to have you all here on You Are It. You are all deeply loved by this Latina. Rumi once said, "You search the world for treasures, but the real treasure is yourself." This is the essence of our message on the You Are It podcast. You are the treasure waiting to be discovered or enjoyed. You are the flame that never consumes itself and the light that shines everywhere. Now you are home. Please know that you are most welcome. Stay tuned as we look forward to sharing something of value on every episode.